All right, so good afternoon, colleagues. Welcome to this, the final Lunch and Learn on the last day of May for our Teaching Emphasis Days. Our Teaching Emphasis Days is a part of the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning's celebration of 30 years in faculty development. And for this particular Lunch and Learn, I would like to take you through the overall feedback component in Moodle Quiz. My name is Michelle Stewart-McKoy, and I am a faculty educational developer in the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. And I'd like to welcome you again, and hopefully we'll have a good session. Now, for this particular session, we'll be doing three things. We are going to be creating grade boundaries within the Moodle quiz in the overall feedback section. We're going to insert or ensure that we craft appropriate feedback within each of the grade boundaries, and then we're going to test what we have created. Now, before we actually get into the meat of the matter, let's talk a little bit. We're now focusing on feedback, but because this section deals with the overall feedback component, we are going to need to just talk a little bit about feedback and to remind ourselves what we need to bear in mind. So when we're giving effective feedback or meaningful feedback, we can use any of the models or strategies that are out there. A very popular one that is used in education is the RISE model, okay? And the RISE model talks about, okay, this is a senior moment. The RISE model talks about reflection, inquiry, suggestion, and elevation. It's a little bit fuzzy for me, and I apologize 100%. So I'll just double check with that with you for that.
Yes, reflection.
So that's correct.
Inquiry. What is the S for?
I had so I don't think it is suggest, it's suggest. I had suggestion. Yes, I am correct. So it's reflection, inquiry, suggestion, and elevation. So those are the four elements of the RISE model. And essentially it's something, it speaks to asking questions. You know, when you start out, you start out with a reflective aspect where you point out that, okay, I agree with this, I like this particular thing, you did an exceptional piece of work here. And then you have the inquiry, so you inquire, what do you mean by so and so? Is there an alternative suggestion for this? And then you make a suggestion. You may want to include the works from so-and-so, or you may want to take a look at the notes again. And then you have what they call the elevation, which is not applicable to every type of assessment that you give, but which is encouraged once it is applicable, where you then take it a little further. So you may say something like, you may want to look at the point you made here and consider expanding it for other fields or other areas. So that's the RISE model, and it's one of the models that is relatively popular or suggested for use in education. We have other strategies. You know, there is one called the reply, where you respond to the question, not the student. You ensure that you are sympathetic somewhere in there. You focus on the student, so you don't make a general statement to say, this is a problem. You point out what the student particular problem is and so forth. But essentially, when we're talking about meaningful feedback, we need to ensure that there is a balance. So we look at the positive, always start with the positive, and then we also look at the areas for improvement. We need to ensure that it is constructive. We should give some kind of suggestion for improvement. We should ensure that we are sympathetic, empathic, as well, so that, you know, we just don't come across as hard and harsh and cold.
I always find that interesting, that some lecturers tend to give you some very vague responses, and I always say, but this doesn't really help. You just put a question sign or a dash or a you know, and, you know, how is the student supposed to interpret that, you know?
That's a very good, that's it. So we have to be very specific in what it is we say, because we want the students to be able to, one, understand what is going on, and two, improve on it. And if it's vague, uh, the student is going to be at a loss. So these are some of the things that we need to consider. Now, when we take feedback and we put it into a Moodle quiz, we use a Moodle quiz for both objective and subjective type items. So for multiple choice, we use it a lot for multiple choice and short answers, objective type items. Well, what we do, or what a number of us do as educators, we tend to not have that feedback component. So students just go and look at the grade alone and that's it. If we can marry the feedback within the results, that overall feedback that the students get, so that they can see the grade, yes, but they also see the kind of feedback where we talk about the positives and talk about the areas for improvement, that is a win for us. And so that is what we're going to do today. We are going to go through the process of using the overall feedback. And it's not something that we have to create. It is something that is already within the Moodle quiz. All right. So I have a student, Olivine, has volunteered, well, forcibly. And so she is going to share her screen and she's going to do an activity. We're going to move from the activity into the creation, but we are going to take a look at how this works. So Olivine, could you share your screen for us, please? All right, at the very top of this page, you'll see two things, Jamaican sports and critical thinking basic. We are going to focus on the Jamaican sports. Okay, and if you want the rest of the team to help you, they can do so. So all the best. It's about Jamaican sporting activities, but you may ask the others to help if you want. You can talk through it, Olivine. You can ask the questions out loud so that the others can help you, especially since it's a recording.
Okay. Which Jamaican soccer player played for both the United States national soccer team as well as the Glasgow Celtics? I'm going to say, well, it's one of these two, Gil Heron and Lester Alcock. I'll go with Lester Alcock. What year did the Reggae Boys play? 1998. A great year for Jamaica. In which Summer Olympics did Dion Hemmings become the first Jamaican woman? Atlanta, 1996. Which of the national heroes set a record as high school athlete? Norman Manley. Who was Jamaica's first individual gold medalist? Oh, there is Arthur Winter or Herb McKinley. Arthur Winter.
Arthur Winter. I think it was Arthur Winter.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Jamaican sportsman. So you're gonna submit and you're gonna finish.
Part of the relay team.
He's related to you?
No, I was saying, was he part of the relay team? Or
he was, but I think he won an individual gold.
Individual team as well. Okay.
Okay, so you can submit then.
Submit all and finish. Once you submit, yes.
Okay, so this is your overall feedback. So we threw an image in there, but the comment is what is there. So even though your grade is there and you can review, what we have found is that when students click review and submit, they see not just a grade that they simply grab and run. They actually are forced to look at the feedback comments that is there as well. And so we are going to look at how do we create within our quizzes so that we can give individual feedback to all our students, this depending on the grade that they get. So at this particular point, we are going to go hands-on. So if you have access to a Moodle course, I'm going to encourage you to log into it and we will take it step by step from there. So are you ready?
Yeah, okay.
All
All
right, so
right,
while
well,
you're
and that is
logging
the
in,
time to log in.
that's fine. While you're logging in, do you see value in including an overall feedback for any kind of quiz using the Moodle quiz for your students?
I have to confess, I tried it once based on a workshop I did here, and everybody got, you know, high. Everybody got great work and all of that sort of thing. I think maybe only one person fell out of the great work column. So I was trying to use Huey's breakdown levels. So I stopped using it after, because I felt if everybody got great work, it didn't mean great work to them. It wouldn't have meant anything.
Well, it could mean one of two things, you know, Olivine, and Dr. Mackenzie, you can jump in at any time. It could mean one of two things. It could mean that for the particular activity, you probably need to make your grade boundaries tighter. So maybe instead of having 0 to 40, you would have like a 0 to 20 and then a 20 to 40, so that you can quickly pick up those who are not doing so well. And then because everybody got grade, maybe you could have grade boundaries that probably had 90 to 100 and then 80 to 90, 80 to 89, so that you could see those who are the top of the class, and those who are doing exceptionally well but not in the top the top tier of 90 to 100. So maybe that is one thing. And then the other thing could probably be the instrument itself. Maybe you needed to look again at the questions, whether or not the questions were covering the kinds of objectives that you know, the full range, and not just focusing on one particular area of maybe recall only. So it could be one of two things, but yes, thanks for that. When I do it with my students, I point out to them that although the university has a clear set of bands, I want to be able to quickly identify and help you to identify areas that are better. So we know that less than 40 is a failure. I'm coming to you, Deidre. We know that less than 40 is a failure, but then you have failures that are critical and need immediate attention. And then you have those who are close enough to the pass mark that you can address in a different way. So I think these are some of the things that we would have to think about when we look at the grade boundaries that we put together. Go ahead, Deidre, your hand was up.
Are you hearing me? I'm driving, so I don't know if you're hearing me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
All right, great. I was saying that I like the use of the image because it immediately grabs their attention, and I can't really read what the message says right now, but I suspect that it is fairly personalized. And so that too, depending on how the message is framed, even a student who fails could be motivated to try harder next time, depending on what is in the message. So we also have to be very mindful of the impact that we want it to have on the students.
Exactly.
And frame the message in such a way that, yes, you failed, but it's an encouraging message, you know? So yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you so much. And that is so true. This particular message says that because we were looking at sporting and support, it says you got a silver medal, you know, you're on track to get the gold medal, go get them or something like that. But I'm going to stop sharing your screen, Olivine, so that I can show what we did with the different components of this particular activity. Is that another hand that I see? Oh, it's Deidre's hand. All right. So
Can
I'm
you
going
lower
to
it for me, please?
yes, we can. Let me know if you are seeing this the quiz.
Yes, we're seeing.
All
We're
right.
seeing.
All right. So the if I were to go to edit settings, because I'm just gonna look, I scroll all the way down to overall feedback, because that is a component of the quiz. So if you scroll down to overall feedback, you will see the components. And this is where we do the setup, all right? So we put the comments in for the different sections, and for our grade boundaries, we had 0. So we always start at 0 and we always end at 100. And so we started ours at 10%. So if a student gets 10% from between 0 and 10%, we have a statement that says something like this: we need to talk. This is serious, but we still don't kill the student that or start out with just negative comments. We point out that you attempted all the questions, which is good. Okay. And well, the test was set in such a way that they had to attempt all the questions, but even so we point out something that's positive. All the questions were attempted, but something definitely went wrong and you have work to do. So this is where the suggestion would come in from the RISE model. Review the key concepts, go through as many past papers as possible. And if you need anything clarified, ask for help. So this is how we set up the different sections. So the student who gets between 11 and 39, it's still a failing grade, but it is not as bad as, and I know that the university does not have a boundary that says 10%, but the 10% helps you to identify the students who really are struggling in your course. Okay, so we are going to actually do our own from scratch. All right. And I'm going to show you one that we had started creating, because you're going to need your test item, but let us create one from scratch. All right, so I'm going to my course. Remember, turn editing on. You have to turn editing on. So my editing is already turned on. And then I scroll down to add an activity. It may look slightly different from what this one looks like. So if I turn my activity chooser off, it looks more like what you're probably familiar with. So I go to add an activity or resource. I want an activity because the quiz is an activity. So I scroll down and it's in alphabetical order, right? So I look for quiz and I click on quiz and I click add. All right, I put the name of the quiz.
Would I see that on mine?
Yes.
Scroll right down to on the first.
So turn editing on.
I did that.
And ensure that you click on add a resource or activity.
Activity, okay.
And it's an activity. So you would put the name, a very clear name of the quiz would go here. And in the description, this is where you would put all the details that pertain to the test. When it opens, when it will close, how much time they have, how much, all the details. And in some cases, some people put in the university logo. That is fine if you want it to look official or if it's being used for official purposes. All right, so I'm not really going to go through.
Activity. All right, so let me put that in.
So you're seeing it now.
So go to, what do I, so click on activities at the top.
I am not sure what your screen looks like. Would you like to share it?
Add an activity resource, and it says, it gives you all.
Would you like to share your screen so I can see what you're seeing?
Oh, okay. Let me go back to the room there. You cannot start screen share while the other participant
Michelle, your email is up.
Yeah.
On the screen.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so it means that
something else is still there, so I can't share.
That's fine. I think I don't understand why you can't.
Let me just follow.
I think, Michelle, if I may, and because I know the system, I think what Bev, what comes up is a window that allows you, it comes up on all, so it shows both activities and resources.
Right. So,
And
but
then
if
to
she
the
looks on
right,
the activity, she should be able to see
right,
that.
so she
All right.
yeah.
But I think it's a good idea for you to follow, babe. So that's
Yes,
fine.
I'll just follow.
All right.
Mhm,
So you
alright.
put in your description, and for your timing, you put in when the quiz would start, when the quiz would end. All right. So we'll put it for today. All right. And no, let's say it ends to. All right, today works. Let's end it later today. And then you can put in a time limit if you have a time limit for your test. So I'm gonna put in my time limit. You put in your where it falls under your grading if you have it. If not, you leave it as uncategorized. You put in your time limit and you decide the layout. All right. So I'm not spending a lot of time on this. I am just quickly setting up a test so that we can use. When it comes to the review options, you can leave, depending on what you're using the quiz for practice purposes, you can leave everything checked. If it's for graded purposes, you will then have to determine which one of these options you remove. So you don't want, especially if it's an online quiz that has a significant grade, well, any grade assigned to it as a part of their final grade. You want to ensure that while they do the test, certain things like whether or not it is correct, what the correct answer is, these are deselected until after the quiz is closed. All right. Now we have done everything that we need so far. So what we're going to do, we then scroll down to the meat of the matter, the overall feedback. When you open your overall feedback, the first thing that you will see is your grade boundary at the highest level, which is 100%. Then if you scroll down, you see your grade boundary, which is where you start at 0%. If you want more grade boundaries, so let us say that you wanted something like the practice that Olivia did for us, you would have to increase the number of feedback fields. All right, so we're going to work with this one. And we have a set of percentages that we'll put in. So for the first one, we are going to put grade boundary 39 and always put percent. Okay. The next one will be 59% because we're saying anybody who gets between 40 and 59 will fall here. So we put the percentage. And then we have 79%. I'll double check in a few. We'll put 79% and then we'll put 89%. Okay, so that would take care of what we have as the generic fields. If, of course, we wanted something that had more bands because you wanted to give more detailed comments to smaller grade sets, pockets, then you would add more. So in a case like that, you probably want to see those who are doing at 0 to 20%, those are doing between 20 and probably 40%, those who are passing but not passing so well. So you'd probably do a 50 to 60% kind of thing. So you can do that by adding more. Then you put in your feedback and your image. We like the idea of the image because if it is appropriate, and it already tells the students how well they're doing. So we put in for the respective sections and then we put in our comments. If you're doing a practice activity, the comments should ensure that you give them the kind of motivation so that in giving suggestions or in giving points for improvement, you also put in there the context of preparing for the final or for the real activity or the graded task or so forth. If it's a case that it's a practice test within a particular theme, so let's say you're doing sports as I did, you can use little terminologies that are in keeping with the theme. The race, gold medals, medaling in and so forth. So you would only be limited by your creativity. All right, so let us put in some images and put in some comments. So if the student gets between 0 and 39, you want to flag this as something of concern. So we're going to put in an image. So, and if you are a female and you want to use female related images, you can. If you are a male, it would be good if you use images that seem to suggest that you are, that reflect, or we're looking for the negative. So I had put in some, I had put in male and female. I'm looking for an image that's appropriate. Let me just make this a little bigger so that we can see clearly. So let's use don't panic, all right? Because if the student has gotten a grade that is of concern, we can put something that says don't panic. If you need more space, you can simply grab the bottom here and drag it down. And then I'm gonna just click on it and resize it, because it's not all about the image, okay? It's more about the statements, but I just want the image. And then of course, what kind of feedback could we give to a student in a case like this? Remember, we start with the positive. The student has gotten between 0 and 39. Anybody? Come on, somebody.
You attempted all the questions and we still have time before the mid-semester.
All right, so you attempted all the questions. And we still have time before the mid-semester. All right. So what's the suggestion for? So you point out that something went wrong.
Yeah, something.
Suggestion.
I
would still doesn't tell the student what to do.
I'd suggest that you look beyond the slides, the class slides.
Okay, so look beyond the class slides.
And check the readings on RVLE.
And
check the readings in our course container.
Check the readings.
Personalized, yeah, in our course container.
In our course container. Course container. All right. And then
also, you can say, trust me, they are interesting or something like that.
They are useful. All right. Okay, so this, yes. All right. And this would be for the student, the kind of feedback that the student who gets anywhere between 0 and 39 would get.
Michelle,
yes. Go ahead.
I think we need something there that reminds the students, remember, you can always make use of consultation or something, good. Or consult with me, or, you know, because sometimes, believe me, some of them go through the material and are still struggling. So that reinforcement that, you know, you're here for support. Also.
All right. So consultations with me or your tutor. All right. So just in case it's a case where you have lecturers and tutors set up in the course. So what we need to do as we go through and create these boundaries is to remember, we start with something positive. It doesn't matter how low the grade is that the student gets. We start with something that points to something that doesn't make the student feel already worse than he or she may be feeling. And then we speak to what can be done. And we offer, as in this case, suggestions as to what to do, how to do it, where to go. And we do that for all of them, including the person who gets between 90 and 100%. It would have fewer comments on the weaknesses, but we definitely need that kind of balance. And we always need to remember the constructive element. So let us go to the student who would now get between 40 and 59. Okay, so the image that we would have for that could be something, I think I had something that says, I'm concerned. Let me just quickly look. So you tried, all right? So we have you tried, and we'll insert this the same way. So in a case like this, I probably
could
would
say-
not have a, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, or I was thinking you could say you almost made it.
So this is what
That
I was about
negative?
to say. I am looking at the boundaries, and the boundaries is borders failure and a pass mark. So what I would do if I were setting up my test, I would go back to this and break it down so that the pass is in a different category. So maybe 39 to 49, since 49 is still a failure. And then point out here, you almost made it. If 60 is the pass mark, this is fine. But if we're working with a pass mark that, let's say, is 50, I would then go back to the drawing board, include another feedback field so that I can break this down into two. Following me so far? All right, so give me the feedback you were saying. You almost made it?
Yes. I was wondering if that would be positive enough. So.
What do you think, colleagues?
I think it could do with a little bit of something.
All right, so let's
you
add a little
almost
something,
made
something.
it. You got
and
a
then
number
we go
of
to the
questions
suggestion.
correct, but
Okay.
so on. So I don't know.
But
there is still quite a bit of work.
Some work to be
something
done.
like
Something to be done.
And then what do we do after that?
And then you make the
encourage them to
suggestion.
do.
So tell me the suggestion.
So the suggestions would be that, well, very similar to what we did before in terms of reviewing the information and reading outside of the just the slides and so on, doing some additional reading.
I'm putting read outside the class notes and create a practice activity and test yourself on it. Something like that.
Yes, and usually there are actually things that they can use to practice.
There you go. Or you direct them to where there are other practice activities. And please note, you can insert links. So let us say that there is a site that you wanted them to go to. If they got this particular grade, you could simply put, check out this site. And then you put the site. So I'm going to just copy, open a site, any site. CETL Moodle. This is not a practice site. This is me just
putting something
selling the CETL. All right. So you would paste it here. All right. And then in order to ensure that when the student gets the feedback, he or she simply clicks on it on the link to go to the practice, you activate the link. So I am going to paste it so that it is active. It becomes blue, and when I click on it, it will open. All right. And you do the same thing for every one of your.
Sorry, can you just show how you activated the link again, please?
Oh, all right. So
that is, I'm just realizing that is what was how we were supposed to save the link to come to the class, come to this session. Is that the same thing?
How you were supposed to save the link?
To come to this session.
Oh, by copying it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So you find the link, you copy the link from wherever it is, the site where you want the students to go to do the practice, and you put the kind of signaling information to the students. So you don't just put the link in, you inform them that this is what they should do. So you can put, say, check out this site or click this site to learn more. If the link is very long, you can simply put click here and put the text in. So I'm going to put both. all right, so that you can see. All right, so what you
Right.
do is you select the text, which is the link. You go up to the top row of your menu. You will have three. You will have one that says insert or edit. You will have one that says on link. This is if you have created a link already and you're going to break the link. And then you will have one that says prevent automatic linking. Sometimes you put in some pages and then you press enter, it automatically creates the link. So you have three, but we are interested in the first one, which says insert or edit. So when you select this, you click on the text and then you simply ensure that you click in the box that you want and you paste it and click insert. It will change the text. If you don't, if, as I said before, the link that you want the students to go to get the additional practice is a very long link, what you can do is put in the text or put in some kind of description that describes where they're going. And you do the same thing. Go up to where the link is, you paste the link that you want the students to go, and then you click on insert. So you notice that they can click here or they can click on the link. If they click here, it carries them to the same place. So this is to tell you that you don't have to just limit your kind of feedback to simply saying, go read your notes again, that sort of thing. You can direct them to on the Moodle page, if you have on the Moodle page up the section for practice activities, but you can also direct them to other places, which I am sure you would have checked out and realized that the information there is valid and reliable and accurate before you send them to practice. And you simply put there, if it's a site that requires permission, make sure you seek permission, all right? Especially in this day and age where data privacy is considered even more crucial, we ask permission where we need to. And you do that, all right? When you have put in all your different sections, remember you have to put in all of them all the way up to 100%. Double check to make sure that the grade boundaries have percentage at the end. If it doesn't, it will flag it as an error and tell you that you need to adjust it because it is reading percentages, all right, not raw scores. And so you need to put percentage at the end. And when you're finished, you simply scroll down to the bottom, click save and display. All right. Now, this test does not have any items in it. So I'm going to go to one that I was working on just before, the critical thinking test. So if I go back to edit, the critical thinking test has a number of items. Here, the description says, this is about the test, this is when it opens, this is when it closes. So all this kind of information is going to be put in. And then when you go down to your overall feedback, you will see I had cleaned them out because I was going to use this as a practice. So you would see the different images in the feedback and the grade boundaries. So let me use back the test that was used as a practice. I apologize for that. I apologize. I forgot completely that I had cleaned it out because I was going to use that one for the practice. So when we go down to the overall feedback, we would have all our categories. Remember, if the space isn't big enough, you can just simply use that at the bottom and drag it across. The more details that you give the students, the more they will appreciate that kind of feedback. And then, of course, as you have seen, when you test it, you then have let me put the link here, so that I will get a very high grade and I can still have where I can check out to the link. So we're going to test the link in this one. Of course, I'm a brilliant student, so I am going for either perfect score or near perfect score. I am just putting the link here, but if you are using the link, you would of course ensure that you put some kind of precursory information so that the students will have access to that. All right. So save and display, and I'm going to do it as a student. So I'm switching my role to student and I am about to attempt the quiz. All right. And as you have seen, this one was Gilly, and I'm very bright. All right. So I'm going to get all of these correct, or most of them, so that I can get the feedback. Where did the Summer Olympic Games with the
Atlanta, 96.
Oh, thank you. And then the Reggae Boys.
1998.
Thank you so much. All right, so when I submit all and I am finished, it tells me that I'm the real MVP. And then it tells me, you are not seeing it right here because I didn't have the time, but it was telling me that in case I need additional practice before the real thing, I can click on this site to do the practice activities. And then of course, it carries me to the page that would have the practice activities. If it's one of those pages that has several practice activities, you may want to say in your overall feedback that they should attempt practice activity 4, 5, and 19. Okay, so you don't just send them to a page that has a number of pieces and leave them there. All right, so that is essentially it. It's not a very hard thing to do. What is harder is setting up your quiz, and the jump is from where to where, Deidre? I'm sorry. From 5 to 19. Oh, those were the practice activities that deal with this particular area. That's why. Anyway, but it's just an example. But what I'm trying to say is, don't just send students to a web page that has all kinds of information. Be specific in the kind of feedback that you give. So if you want them to be able to continue the practice on this particular area that has to do with quantum physics, and you find a page that has activities dealing with calculations and algorithms and whatever quantum physics deal with, you then say to them, focus on X, Y, and Z, because P, Q, and R may actually be focusing on something else. So it means that as a facilitator, you would have to ensure that you go through, you review where you're sending the students so that they can also be clear. You test it out before you give it to the students. So in the long run, what I'm saying is setting up the overall feedback is easy. Once you have a clear idea of the boundaries that you're going to be using, once you know what it is you're looking for in terms of student, the kind of feedback that you want to give to them if they are based on their performance, then you can simply go in and fill in the respective sections. As you can see, the only thing that you have to do is set your boundaries, find an appropriate image. If you're using images, you don't have to use images, but images enhance the kind of feedback that you're giving to the students, and tell the students by just looking at the image where they are situated in terms of their performance. And then you ensure that the feedback that you give is meaningful feedback. Ensure that it is balanced, ensure that it is respectful, ensure that you not just point out what is good and what is bad, but you give suggestions for improvement. You point the student to where he or she can go to find additional information that will help him or her. And if the opportunity exists for more practice, before the next assessment, before the next activity, before the real thing, a graded piece of work, you give the student that kind of information. You also put on the table the possibility of coming to see you as a facilitator or directing the person to any center that you may have. So I know that some places have a writing center, some places have a particular site, you send the student there. The whole matter of looking at how well students do is another workshop altogether, because that means that you're looking at the analysis, and that will have you reflect on the types of questions that you have written based on students' performance. This particular one was focusing only on creating the overall feedback component and including it in your quiz. Now, if you're doing the Moodle quiz, remember that it's not just about multiple choice and short answers only. It goes beyond just objective type items. You can have extended writing and you can still use the overall feedback. It's just that the students will not get that kind of overall feedback until you have gone in and have marked any essay type question or short answer responses. Any questions, any comments? Is this something that you have used, that you will use, that you will tweak in using with your students?
Where did you get the images? Because I have looked, I have tried this. I found some stars, but they didn't carry the punch that your images have.
That's my Bitmoji. So I signed up for bitmoji.com because I realized that if you had something that looks, you know, you can tailor it to look like you. So if you have a Snapchat, a number of persons have Snapchat accounts, it comes with an accompanying Bitmoji. So I created an account on Bitmoji and I tailor it. So I changed the look every now and again. I changed the outfit. So it gives that kind of currency to the field. And I use it because there are memes that have comments, some don't, but they have positive comments. Some have negative comments, some look sad, some look happy, some have the thumbs up and so forth. So I use that when I give my feedback. But you can also create your own. So if you have a cartoon image that you have found. I use PowerPoint a lot. So what I tend to do is I find an image that's probably has the thumb up and I write great job. I add a little shadow on it and that's it. Or I use flaming text. So there is a site. We have a little time. So let me just show you flaming text. All right, I'm going to share about my screen. So I tend to use this as well if I'm creating them from scratch. So I would look for one of the logos that work well for me. So let's say I'm going with style. And then I click on edit logo. This of course may be another session, but just to give you quickly, and then I type something like great job. I put my exclamation sign. I can change the font because I'm not too crazy about the one that's there. And I look, I like this. I probably don't want to go to pink because I'm going to be giving it to the boys as well. So I probably go with something that's they're not going to complain about too much. So I
Blue.
change. Yeah, blue is a good color to use. So let's use a navy blue and all right, so something like that works. And then when I'm finished, I go across to done. I download it. And so this allows you to use these free. So I download it somewhere. Let's put it here. And then I subscribe to to a site called Graphic Factory. I'm just gonna go there and show you very quickly. So when I go to Graphic Factory, I log in. Let's make sure I'm logged in. Yes, there I am. And then I look for happy African American because that's the term they use for us. And all right, not too crazy about these, but let me just use one for example. I tend to go for the PNG because that has a transparent background. And it means that when I create my image, let me put happy girl. All right. And then the next thing that I do, as I said, I work a lot in PowerPoint. So I'm just going to open PowerPoint and show you how I create them for my purposes. So I open my PowerPoint. Do you realize that this is 2 tutorials in one? I look for my image. All right, so I'm just waiting on it to come up. I'm on the desktop and I think it went into the positive one. Yes, there she is. All right, and I resize her. Ideally, I would probably look for somebody who has a thumb up, right? But for now, it's just showing you what I would do. And then now I'm looking for the text. All right, there it is. Great job. Right. Now I may want to put it below. And then I probably just adjust her a little bit. And then I save this. So this is what I would save. I'm going to save it in the same folder. On the desktop, in the one that says positive, and I'll save it as great job. All right. Now, when I do that, I can then go back to my quiz. So let's go back to this one, go back to editing. And sorry, oh, I was viewing it as a student. Remember that when you do that, you always need to go back and return to your normal role. So I go back to edit, I go back to my overall feedback. And then let's say I'm taking this one out. This is where I would put that image. So I find the image, I look for where it is. It is in the folder on my desktop that's called positive. Oh, great. So I'm looking for it. Oh, this is negative. So I'm looking for my folder. Positive, positive. When you see it, let me know.
Sorry,
It says great. Yes, there it is. Yeah. All right. And then I upload. I will have to resize. This is very large, as you can see. So I'll probably just put 250. And then I click OK. All right, and there it is. I may need to. So I do things like that, Olivine. So you can create, you can use the flaming text, and I tend to do my thing in PowerPoint. So if you can't find something that works for you, you can create it. All right. The important thing is that ensure that the images that you use are relevant, are appropriate, are culturally appropriate. So we are from
that is why I really couldn't find anything, and I ended up with stars, and I also had put free because copyright free. I didn't want to use anything that would get me in trouble.
Right, understood. But you can test out the Bitmoji thing. Quite a number of educators use Bitmoji. So they set up the Bitmoji classroom and they use it to send out announcements and so forth. So test it out and see whether or not that is something that could work for you. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Instead of going them by the categories, 60 to 80 or 60 to 70, etc. Would it be wise to just have one general feedback section that would allow students to know if you fell into 40 to 60 and that comment beside it, 60 to 80, yes. Comment, yeah.
Yes, you could do that. It really depends on what it is you want to do and how detailed you want the bands to be. So you could set it up with just 2. You could set it up with 0 to 59, to 49, with, let us say 49, which would be fail, and then anything above. So there would only be 2 bands there. So depending on where the students fall, you could give general information, general feedback, as to failing and then to passing. So you could do that. It really depends on how detailed you want to give the information based on the kinds of performance. I tend to, even though the university, as I said before, has specific bands, I tend to, because I want students to know that, okay, I'm not doing well. It's not that I'm just failing. It is I'm failing well, or I'm not failing. I'm failing horribly. I tend to do that. Deidre, your hand is up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, so I have used it. I like it. In terms of the suggestion that Jason just made, one of the things that I like about having the different bands is that even though it is still general feedback for the entire class, it still feels pretty personalized when you set it up with the various bands. And I think that's a way to give that kind of personalized feedback without, having to type this into individual students' work. So it's something that could work the way Jason set it up. I personally don't like that route because it still feels like clumping, still feels like you're just putting the students into these two groups, and I
Very
have to
wide
now
bands,
read
yes.
through to see, okay, what is my personalized comment? And the good thing is that, and say for example, it's a case where each semester you have to reset your modules and stuff. When the reset is done, it comes over with it. So you
over, that's
find
correct.
that you don't have to keep setting it up every semester. So I think it's worth just taking a little time to put it together
And
put
make
it
the
in.
bands small enough so that you can
Small,
give more
right.
specific.
It still feels,
Yes.
yeah.
Your hand is up, Olivine, go ahead.
I was also thinking about the psychological effect on the students. If I got 48 or 49 and you are lumping me with a student who got 5 or 3,
There you
actually,
go.
it demotivates me, you know? And if I'm at 99, I still don't want to be in the same group as the people who are
Somebody
at 52.
who's got 51. Yes, that is correct. So having these specific bands help in that sense. So we have to think it through. You know, the purpose of the activity is good, but we have to think it through. Will just having 2 bands, one that addresses all failures and one that addresses all passes, be enough to give that kind of feedback? And because we said that feedback is supposed to be specific, we can't give that kind of specificity if we have a band that runs from 0 to say 49. We can do so better if we have a 0 to 15 and a 15 to 30 and a 30 to 49. But we can't truly address well in one, especially since if I get 49, I'm going to get something like you have not addressed so and so and so, you need to go back and look at. And if I get 99 out of 100, I get a comment that say, oh yes, you have passed. You also need to look at sorts. So if the bands are smaller, we are able to tailor the kind of feedback to make it a little more specific than relevant if it were very wide.
Let me clarify. I think this, and Jessica can correct me if I'm wrong. I think what he was suggesting is like you still put bands, but you put them in one place. So the student, so you still put descriptors, even though the bands are wide, and the students would read and say, I fall in this band, so this is my comment. That's what I got from what he was suggesting.
But that would be, but if you have boundaries, bands that are already that's inherent in the setup, why would you want to remove them and then create the bands within a bigger category? So maybe we need to have another discussion.
That style is like you do these quizzes in magazines.
If you got between so and so and so and so and so, yes. But we don't have to do that. We don't have to say if you got between so and so, because the students will get a specific grade. So we know that the student who gets 10 can have this feedback without saying if you got between 10 and 13. So my grade will say 10, and my feedback, although I know that as a facilitator, the feedback has to do with the grades between 10 and 15. I know that this is the specific feedback. So it adds to that personalized. You're giving me feedback and not saying if you belong to this category. So that works. It is 4 minutes past, according to my device, colleagues. I see where the conversation is just getting very interesting. But because we are slotted for an hour, I unfortunately will have to end this here. But we can continue the conversations in other circles.
Do you have any other sessions coming up, or this is
the last for the month of May? Whatever we have coming up, we will have to, schedule those in, and we will send out the announcement so you can be made aware of that. All right. But I just want to remind us that feedback is a critical component of the teaching and learning. It helps us as facilitators, it helps the students more. When we are putting our feedback together, we should remember that we should look at a strategy, ideally at a strategy as one of the approaches or models. If whatever it is we use, we should ensure that it is meaningful. So it must be balanced, it must be constructive, it must be specific, okay? It must be timely. Ensure that whatever feedback you give, the student has access to it as soon as is humanly possible. And for the Moodle quiz, remember that this is a part of the quiz. Most of us as facilitators tend to leave that part out. It is something that we can easily put in our boundaries or comments and an image, and students appreciate it. My students love it. It helps them and they tell me, can you do this for all the quizzes? So test it out. We will reach out to you every now and again to find out if you tested this thing, how did it work for you, so that we can have a feel of what is happening. If there are no other questions or comments, ladies and
just want
gentlemen.
to ask one
Go
little
ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
I tend to give detailed feedback when I'm, for example, one of the courses I teach now, it's not a quiz, it's writing a letter and resume. And I give the feedback, but then at the end, it seems the students are not able to retrieve it, even though the thing is ticked that it must be made available to the students. So I reload the marked script, but they are not able to access it. So I wonder if sometimes that is what happens. I don't know if it's a setting that needs to be changed.
It may be a setting. So in a case like that, a closer look at the backend would be necessary.
Because I plan to check it out, yes, because I do give feedback, but they don't get it.
All right, so we just need to look at that because the students need to be able to see and act upon the feedback. Right. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much. We look forward to continuing to serve you with our faculty development initiatives as you serve your students. So have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.